Well, welcome to Biblical Theology Today. This is an interesting day for us. I want to introduce you to my good friend Neal Doran. Neal, welcome to this starting podcast. You doing all right today?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you.
So Neal and I are colleagues at Bryan College, and Neal, could you introduce yourself a little to the Biblical Theology Today and tell us what do you do at Bryan College and this uh, help us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Well, and again, it's just a real privilege and honor to be among this audience that I know is um, very focused on important biblical theology questions. And I teach a series of courses at Bryan College. I came on staff about 10 years ago, and when we met. And I teach biology classes, geophysics class, philosophy of science, and directed research classes for our students in the biology program. Doing that for about 10 years, taught a variety of different classes, variety of different biology classes, intro biology, origins, history of life, which is kind of like a more in-depth origins type of a class.
Now, before you came to Bryan College, you taught some other places. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was at Patrick Henry College before this, taught some of the same types of classes there. That was a very good place to teach as well. And then before that, I did a little bit of teaching, adjunct teaching in Southern Georgia and with Florida State University as I was finishing and when I finished my doctoral degree.
And where did you do your studies and what were your subjects?
Okay, my starting point was a degree in geology with a minor in zoology at the University of Florida, um, and I had the privilege of study under someone who was considered by some to be one of the 1,000 greatest scientists of all time.
Oh,
He
wow.
was a geophysicist. The field was paleomagnetism, and I didn't know it at the time. I knew that he was a really prominent individual in the geologic sciences, earth sciences. He had come down from Columbia University, the Lamont,
Oh, wow.
Lamont Earth Observatory, and he kind of set the program in place. And we had an impressive array of faculty there. That one of my first classes was an isotope geochemist who became chair of the, geology at Michigan. Another
Oh,
one went
wow.
to Cambridge University, and so he was Dr. Updike was very good at finding talent and putting together an amazing team. So I'm just very grateful for that education.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was part of a well during that time I was part of a very good evangelical church that really prized the mind, the role of the mind in the faith, and the elder board. A lot of them were biology professors actually, but I was caught up in a reading group that was looking at a lot of intellectual philosophy, history issues, and kind of inspired me to get out of the sciences and go into history and philosophy studies and science. So I did a master's degree there after that under a really prominent historian of biology. And then after that, I decided to go back into the sciences. So I did a master's in geology at University of Cincinnati, focusing on quantitative patterns, and then eventually doctorate at Florida State, looking at a field called micropaleontology. And micropaleontology studies a variety of organisms that are below normal viewing size, hand sample specimen size, but microscopic. One of the reasons they're so important is because they're so abundant that they're really critical to not only geological science, but also for oil companies and finding oil. So try to get a range of training, a lot of statistical training, morphometric training, and such, to address questions of evolutionary theory and the fossil record.
Now, I don't think I realized, but if I heard you rightly, you have two master's degrees, one in the philosophy of science and then a hard science, and then your PhD is in the hard sciences. Is that right?
That's correct.
And Neal, do you and I have any common friends, maybe connected with this whole discussion?
Oh yeah, through Bryan College and through the creation geology and biology
Who
and
are
theology
who are
societies.
some of those people?
Kurt Wise is one. He was a former colleague there of yours before I came.
Yeah, he was here at Bryan for about 4 months, and sometimes you meet people and you think, "Oh my goodness, I could be best friends with this person," and I felt like that immediately. Kurt, he actually introduced me to the word meta narrative, and I bet I've said that word 10,000 times. I use it all the time. It's a great framework, and I can still remember a very formative conversation that he and I had over the lunch table about. I think we were there an hour or 2 hours, and we were just talking about interpreting the Bible. And Kurt's had a very heavy influence on you, as I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So after I finished my history and philosophy training, I studied with him informally, and he and Marie uh, made me basically part of their family. I would come through there very regularly, very often, traveling back and forth between Cincinnati and Florida, and stay up late into the night on his good graces and
Mm,
Marie's. And we just had such a good time for such a long time. And so I can very easily see you having just wonderful conversations on the theological side. And then I was able to, on my part, really dig into a lot of conversations on the scientific side. And it could be geology, but also biology, astronomy, cosmology. We covered the whole gamut, and that was my introduction to the creation model
mm,
on that side of things. But people like you are pioneering the biblical side of it, which we really have a need for. We've had the um, creation biology and creation geology societies for a while. I'm a founding member of the Creation Biology Society
mm.
back in the 90s, and that's done very well. But we spent quite a bit of time without um, interacting with a range of theologians. But now that's starting to change. I'm just really happy about that.
And over the last 10 years, you and I have had many conversations, and often I will go away from a conversation like that saying, wow, I did not know that about science. And it's made me think about the Bible in slightly different ways, good ways. And it's nearly always made me walk away with a greater trust for God's word. So I appreciate that. I imagine over the course of these podcasts that many of those conversations will come out. I'm sure other people will be benefited of it as well. Um,
I
what?
agree. I just have to say that I've walked away from conversations with you where I say, I've been reading the Bible my whole life. How did I not see this or that
Oh,
that you opened my eyes to? And so that's been just great fun for
mm,
me.
yeah, that's very kind. Um, I imagine over the course of time that we'll have other people will join us and talk about things. I know Kurt introduced me to his very good friend Mike Matthews, who for years and years was the editor at Answers in Genesis. And I know of everyone I've ever worked with in writing about anything, Mike is just in a different universe. He makes me write better. He makes me think better, and he has this polymath gift. He's read in so many fields and helped people write in so many fields, and so I imagine the day will come when all three of us, or maybe even Kurt, all four of us can talk about things. But as I understand it, I think what you and I would like to do is just talk about issues in Genesis. And if we want to be people who believe in science and we want to be people who believe in the Bible, well, how do each of those fields inform the other? And I know that as you and I have talked often, well, I'll give you the example. You know, when I went to Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in the late '80s, that was, in my opinion, the best evangelical seminary that you could
Right.
go to, and I benefited from Doug Moo, Kevin Van Hooser, Murray Harris, um, all kinds of people, Gleason Archer. And I remember kind of having this almost hero worship. You know, here's a guy who's been writing on conservative issues for so long. And I remember being in his intro Old Testament class, whatever, survey class, I think it was. And as I remember, there were like 200 or 400 people in that classroom. It was huge. I sat in the back. I can still remember it seemed a little dark. And I remember Dr. Archer said, and I may have misheard him, and if I did, I apologize. But as I heard him, he said something like, you know, to get water to cover Mount Everest, you would need 7 times the amount of water available on planet Earth. Therefore, the flood was local. And I remember when he said that, and I could have misheard it. I mean, I was a first year student there at TEDS, but it struck me that's not what I would have thought from, you know, this bastion of conservative Old Testament scholarship. But you and I have actually had a conversation. Could you maybe comment, and just, this is an illustration of how knowing someone in the hard sciences can maybe you enable somebody like me to ask a better question or to think better about questions like that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I remember our conversations, and so Gleason Archer. Let's just kind of break it down here a little bit. Um, on the one hand, just be a little to be let's be just being charitable to him, as I know we both are. He's just a tremendous scholar. Knew about 30 languages.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I can read. He said he kept Bibles by his bedside, and it's like I think he may have married a Swedish woman or so. You know, he learns just taught himself all kinds of languages, just kept Bibles on the bedside, and each day he would go to a different language and just read through all the Bible. At least that's how I remember the conversation. But to learn that many languages and then to actually keep them up where, you know, he can function, that was amazing to me. And I think his doctoral dissertation was actually, I think it was at Harvard, and I think he said it was on Pindar, which I took a classical class on Pindar. It was the hardest Greek I ever read in my life. But he did doctoral work comparing Pindar to Goethe
Oh wow.
in German,
Oh
and
wow.
he said at those days in at Harvard, if he had written on classical Greek, he would have had to write the dissertation in Greek, but because it was two languages, he got to write it in English because there were so few people who could interact with both those ideas. But like, I mean, the guy was just so gifted, and I loved him as a person. He helped me be a much better scholar. But it was interesting to me when he said that. If I heard him rightly, I may have misheard him, but I believe I heard him say that. So
I imagine I imagine that's accurate. And in fact, biblical scholars, any scholar at the time you were at Trinity, didn't really have a an academically sound framework to understand any of these issues. And
they didn't have a friend like I have in you who can inform me when I'm maybe ignorant about some basic scientific fact.
I'm standing on some big shoulders here with Kurt Wise and Steve Austin. Uh, uh, so Dr. Archer never got a chance to really benefit from that. But one little side anecdote here about Gleason Archer. It's funny. I have a good friend from my college days. His last name is Yuchum, Juchum,
Okay.
and everyone would mispronounce his name, and I would sometimes just kiddingly say to him, "Hey, Juchum," and we were at a conference together. We actually had dinner with Gleason Archer,
Mm.
and um, uh, when John met Gleason Archer looked at John's name tag and leaned in, just kind of adjusted his glasses, and said, "John Yucum."
That does not surprise me.
The impressive thing about that was only two people, Gleason Archer being one of them, had ever gotten John's last name correctly
Yeah,
pronounced.
yeah. I
So that's the kind of scholar that he was.
and
Um,
just the care. I had the great privilege to take Aramaic with him, and
oh wow,
um, he he had us read Aramaic from Qumran, and part of the homework was we had to point the text. It's not written with um,
right?
vowels, so he wanted us to point the right read. So we had to
Right. Point
go
it
to
on
the
your
text
finger up there.
and try to figure out what verbal form it was there. And I mean, to this day, I I would have trouble doing that with the text that I knew the best. But like he did that on his own. There was no resource to go to. He just wanted to work through those things and kept just uh, very great notes. And if I'm remembering this conversation rightly, he encouraged us to do our notes in pen because they'll last 50 years from now. And if you do it in pencil, they won't. Like that was kind of his, at least as I remember those conversations, his take. So I'm completely with you, just total respect for him as a scholar and a person and as a believer.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so back to the scientific question. First of all, he's correct. If you want to cover Mount Everest with water, you're going to need a tremendous amount of water. And in fact, more than the global oceans contain right now. In fact, as I recall, this dinner we had with him, this was sometime in the 90s. I don't know if his positions kind of came and went, but I recall him saying to me um, that the water covered the highest mountains, including Mount Everest. He said I don't care if God had to supernaturally zap the water in and zap it back out again, it covered that mountain.
Oh, wow.
And so,
It may be that I misheard him. I imagine I had that class in 1989 or 1990. So I mean, it was a huge class. I was way in the back. Um, I
no,
know
I'm not,
he was talking about, but like I may have misunderstood what his position was. But
yeah, and I'm not calling your memory into question. I think that
oh,
I
oh,
consider both
please
of
do.
us.
I've got a terrible memory. So
No, I think what it is, and this is the reason you and I are here today, and that is these questions are so difficult. The cross-disciplinary discussions are so hard to get a hold of or so hard to engage. The scholars working in different areas are maybe just not talking, or there's maybe been areas where we've really been lacking in. But I affirm what you're saying. I believe he said that. And then I talked to him a number of years later, maybe it was in the early 90s sometime. It sounds to me, from what you're saying, if we put this all together, that he'd been struggling a bit with how to understand this.
hmm
And so his only option was to say that God supernaturally zapped the waters in there and then back out again. And I think that's a real good illustration for us to start talking about, because it shows that um, there are questions that are difficult, questions that people have wrestled with, and I would say that it's only in the last couple decades, really, that we have begun to even have a framework for a sensible way to understand the vocal text and the scientific evidence at the same time. And that's exactly why we're here today, and why we're having this conversation. So he is right. You would need many times the global ocean water volume to cover Mount Everest.
Well, if I came to you and said, Neal, I want to believe the Bible is true. I want to be under God's word, not over God's word. I don't want to believe more than the Bible is asking me to believe. But when I read the text, when I read it in Hebrew, it looks like it's saying um, all the world was covered with water during a global flood. Um, can I believe that as a Christian and still believe in science?
Yes, and here's why. And I'll quote. I think Kurt Wise had a good quote here, and that is that the Bible's open to interpretation. We hear that a lot, but science is open to more interpretation, and that is
The
there are a
whole
lot.
two books in the same way I, as a biblical interpreter, may misinterpret a biblical text. I, as an interpreter of the book of nature, I may can misinterpret some of those things as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you brought up the two books illustration, which I affirm that in one sense. Uh, However, when I look at the other book of nature, historically, it's not one book. It's many, many, many,
Mm,
many books written by many, many, many men over many, many, many years. And those books come and go over time. In
mm,
fact, the book I first used as an undergraduate in biology or geology, for example, the book I used in geology is called Earth. It was a real cutting edge book at the time, and we've gone well beyond that just in my short time since being a
mm.
student. So I do believe there are two books in a sense, but the thing that's always bothered me about that illustration is that that second book is, I would say, something unlike the first book, the one you have behind you on the screen.
Yeah, that has God's name signed to it. Take it to the bank, and if there is book of nature, we're trying to get an authorial intent. Does God have an authorial intent in what he revealed in nature?
That's yeah, that's
Do,
absolutely right.
do,
And oh, go ahead.
uh, am I right in believing that there are marine fossils at the 26,000 foot level on Mount Everest? Is that right?
There are marine fossils everywhere. If we go outside of our door now and we look at some of the strata, we're on top of topsoil right now. You dig down a little bit, like for instance, you and I drive to work. We see the same really beautiful scenes and ridge, the Cumberland Plateau. There are marine fossils there. There are marine fossils all around us. Or there might be shallow water fossils, maybe
So,
or
so,
freshwater land fossils, maybe on the Cumberland Plateau, and
so
maybe nearby there are marine fossils. But
there are marine fossils on top of Lookout Mountain. Is that right?
probably so. I need to check my maps, but geologic maps can tell you all the nuances up there. But in general, you have what we call carboniferous sands are up there, and those might have terrestrial invertebrate fossils. There may be some marine invertebrate fossils nearby. Um, but if not, there, we're just a close distance from something else, or maybe some coal. When we're in Dayton, we're not far away from some coal seams in the Dayton Coal and Iron Company.
and
But
and
but yeah, the Mount Everest was material there was once seafloor level.
and so you're telling me that the what is the word, the plate tectonics, as they smash together, that's what's raising the mountains up. And would it be the standard position of science that at one point that that ground on Earth was actually underwater at one time?
Yes, and it was so the Himalayan plateau there was once smashed pretty hard by India. India was an individual plate that really kind of, in one sense, if you kind of look at the time frame, it kind of sped its way across the Indian Ocean and slammed into that plateau, and that's why it's uplifting like this. We have like one plate going under the other, and it what we call isostatically the thickness raises it up. And I remember, in fact, that same famous professor I mentioned that I studied my first one of my first professors. He made a motion like with his fist, like hitting something, and that's when you talk about the Himalayan plateau. That's exactly what happened, and why we have that plateau there.
Now, just in terms of your background, is it true that you've been on a dinosaur dig?
Yes.
So you've held bones from dinosaurs, dug them. Tell us about that.
Let me tell you something funny about that. Um, we were in a site, Hanson Ranch, and I took a couple students from Bryan, which is really rewarding, really a lot of fun. And we're out there digging, and there were so many bones that we found. I sometimes joke with my students, "You don't find dinosaur bones there; they find you." And we might be digging at the end of the day and come across, we want to go to dinner, but every time we find one, we have to catalog. We cataloged it thoroughly in a field book, and we might be at the end of the day and we find one. We go, "Oh no, not another dinosaur bone."
Now you're doing some interesting uh, primary research with that in terms of, as I've understood you describe it to me, it's like this dinosaur graveyard, and you're trying to figure out the direction of the water flow and like what exactly happened. And you're doing some cutting edge science there. Tell us about it.
Well, and I'll attribute this to the Hanson Ranch workers from Southern and Southwestern Adventist who, for 20 years, have been digging on average 1,000 bones or greater per summer out of the ground, and not only that, but documenting them very carefully and using high precision GPS on every single bone, and created a tremendous database. And so this year we got a hold of it, and I'm working with a student to try to understand some of those things. And so we have a data set that we can look at statistically, or we could talk about what we see up close in the field. And what we can see up close in the field is what we can call uh, graded beds of dinosaur bones. And so what this means is grading means you have one sediment size in one spot, maybe larger at the bottom, that progressively gets smaller and smaller up the section. Or you could reverse it and have larger at the top and it gets smaller as you go.
Hmm.
These are evidences always of some kind of fast moving water that was able to carry and suspend in suspension larger material, carry it along, and then as the current waned, the the physical forces in the fluid, the water in this case, drop down and begin precipitating out, dropping out the smaller and smaller sediments. And so there's one particular bed in one of the quarries where it's just very obvious we have very large bones in the bottom, hadrosaur femurs, complete hadrosaur femurs, and on top of that, bones are a little smaller. And then on top of that, bones are a little smaller. And then on top of that, a little smaller still. So it kind of starts big on the bottom, and then it just kind of gradually thins out in terms of sizes. So you get one layer, very large material, next layer on top, a little bit smaller, on top a little bit smaller, and then so on as you go up. And the only way you can get that situation is a very high velocity current coming in and picking up material of that size and depositing it in some kind of little basin, some kind of little depression, some kind of channel. And then as the current slows, it slowly piled up additional material on top of it.
A massive catastrophic water event.
Absolutely.
And so, for you as a geologist and as a conservative Christian, when you take your training and you look at those dinosaur bones, does it lead you to disbelieve the Bible, or does it bolster your faith?
I'll tell you what, my training or Kurt's training didn't really prepare us well to see that, in the sense that we never discussed things like that. We never imagined things like that. And what is so stunning is when you actually go to a quarry, you go to a site, and you start seeing things that are so unusual, given your training. It's just stunning. I remember when I first went there, dinosaur bones aside, I worked mainly in, as I described for my training, marine sections, meaning these are like brachiopods and what are called foraminifera and things like those, deeper ocean or shallow ocean shelf material. So it was a real treat to go out to the dinosaur site and see see what we call the terrestrial situation. I didn't have as much experience in that. So when I went out there the first time with my family, we drove our van out there and found the site. And before we got to the encampment, we saw the encampment down a slope, down a hill. There are some hoodoos, some little rock faces, just along the roadside going down. And when I saw in detail something there, I had to stop the minivan and get out and look at it because I was so taken by what I saw. And that was, I saw large, what are called cross-bedded sandstones, um, right in front of me, just sitting on the top of this little structure just outside the dinosaur site. And those indicate, just those alone, the sands, that has to be some very strong current activity, moving quartz sand grains in that fashion. And so, to me, I kind of thought this is a good welcome sign to the whole experience. It's
So
kind of like
this is
welcome,
a,
right?
a massive water event. In what state is the Hanson Ranch in?
This is in Newcastle, Wyoming, which is on the eastern border of Wyoming. Just to the north is a very famous dinosaur location called Hell Creek. This is where you can talk about soft dinosaur tissue. But just to the east of Newcastle, where we were, just go a little ways. You're in Cedar Rapids, South Dakota, and you can see Mount Rushmore.
Oh,
Just so you
wow.
know the area, not very far, just a couple hours away. It's a pleasant drive over there. And so there are exposed, what we call Cretaceous outcrops all over that part of the state, also into South Dakota. Some of the best Tyrannosaurus rex that we know of is also found in that area.
Hmm. Well, Neal, this has been so delightful. Now, you just published a book, is that right? You finished it last summer, and is that tell us about that?
Yes, the book is called Morphospatial Patterns in the Dinosauria, and it was a work that Matt McLean and I started back in 2018, actually. And I decided to go into some more depth on it, and in addition to look at philosophical questions behind what is a dinosaur created kind, basically. And so we're in the kind of the publishing stage right now. It's being typeset in England, and I hope to hear back a little bit and just a little bit here about my reviews after I've reviewed the typesets. And we're also looking at some cover designs. And so yeah, that's very exciting. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. And I'm also privileged by the fact that Kurt Wise, again, who we mentioned earlier, Kurt Wise helped me edit.
Oh,
Um,
very good.
Generous. I mean, his generosity is just been a real inspiration to me for a long time. But when I showed him the book, he said, "I am going to put everything I'm doing aside just to focus on your book."
Hmm. That's fantastic.
And he did, and he wrote the foreword, and we just had a great time
Hmm.
talking about it. But yeah, that should be out fairly soon.
Well, if you've made it this far in the podcast, thank you very much. I will make a shameless appeal. If you find benefit from this, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you like what we're doing, it is a fairly expensive task to put together material like this. And if you would like to support what we're doing, there is a membership button there. And I will say that anything that we're doing excellent um, on the podcast has been completely from the generosity of Christians who have supported what we're doing. And if you would like to help Neal and me, you can hit that button. Of course, the super thanks is there as well. And we're intending on publishing one of these a week, and we're going to go through and look a detailed take on many different passages like this. So until next time, all the best.